Good afternoon. YouTube, how are you? TikTok, what's going on? LinkedIn and Facebook. Hey everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, I said good afternoon. It's morning. I'm Brian Manning. I'm an asylum lawyer. I used to be an asylum officer with the government, but now as an asylum lawyer, my law firm helps immigrants all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. I want to answer your questions about asylum in the United States. Say hello first and foremost. How are you? Say hello in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from. Love to see where our community is, where you guys are joining us from today. So say hello and let me know where you're watching from. All right. Say hello in the comments. All right. All right. Good start. Good start. Hey, YouTube. See, how are you guys doing? Good to see you. I'm Brian Manning. I'm an asylum lawyer. I'm an ex-asylum officer and ex-diplomat, but now my law firm is helping people all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. Say hello. Let me see where you're at. And then leave your questions. Let me know what questions you have about winning asylum in the United States. I'm going to answer your questions, but first I want to say a couple words about this topic, the dreaded NOID. What is a NOID? What a weird word, huh? NOID is how asylum officers pronounce and lawyers pronounce this NOID, called a Notice of Intent to Deny. Notice of Intent to Deny is a letter that you get from USCIS, from the asylum office, if after your asylum interview with them in your affirmative asylum case, if they think, nope, you're not qualified for asylum, you're not winning asylum, but you have legal status at that moment. At the moment they make that negative decision, if you have status, whether you still have your tourist status, student status, temporary protected status, TPS, whatever the case may be, if you still have status at that moment, when this negative decision is made, then you don't get sent to immigration court. You don't get a referral to immigration court. You also don't get a denial, at least not yet. Instead, you get what's called a Notice of Intent to Deny. It's a letter from USCIS that says, listen, we think that you're not eligible for asylum and we intend to deny you. We think that you're not eligible for the following reasons. And they kind of explain their reasoning. And then they say you have 16 days to respond in writing to try to change our minds, to try to show us why we're wrong and that you do in fact deserve asylum. So it's kind of like an appeal. You have 16 days for them to receive your, what they call a rebuttal, basically your arguments about, no, you're wrong. I should win asylum. Here's why. You have 16 days to get that to them, but you don't get that NOID, that Notice of Intent to Deny, in the mail for a few days. So in reality, you usually have like a week and a half to be able to really come up with arguments and respond and try to convince them that you should get asylum. It's really hard to change USCIS's mind on this, okay? They rarely approve or overturn their original decision and say, you know what, you changed our minds. We are going to give you asylum after all. It's not impossible, though. We have had success with this in my law firm. We go through line by line and try to pick apart their reasoning that they set forth in the Notice of Intent to Deny. When they say, we think you're not eligible for these reasons, we go through, and it's kind of like we're appealing a judge's decision, where we're looking at the reasoning of the judge and we're trying to point out, oh, no, you messed up here. This is wrong because of the following reasons. And so we'll write a thorough legal brief about this to show why they're mistaken and try to convince them to change their minds. The odds are not good. It's rare. It's rare to get them to make them change their minds, but it does happen. We have had success with this. All right. But it's hard. If you get one of these from USCIS, the letter, the NOID, again, stands for Notice of Intent to Deny. If you get one of these after your interview, you need to call an asylum lawyer immediately, because it takes time to put together a convincing argument to try to rebut this, to try to change their minds. So do not waste time. Call an asylum lawyer immediately. All right. All right. Would someone get annoyed after 8 years? Probably not, because you only get annoyed if you have legal status at the moment that they make the negative decision. And there are people that have been here for 8 years with legal status. There's some, like students, that can go for a very, very long time with valid student status, but you don't get annoyed if you don't have status. So most people don't get annoyed. If you get it, most people that get a negative decision from the asylum office don't get annoyed. Instead, they get what's called a referral notice. The referral notice says, hey, you are being sent to immigration court. We're trying to deport you. You had to show up in immigration court to defend yourself because the government's now trying to deport you. You get the referral notice if you don't have legal status when a negative decision is made by the asylum office. But if you do have legal immigration status at the moment, a negative decision is made by the asylum office, you get a notice of intent to deny. You have 16 days to try to change their minds. They'll consider your rebuttal, your arguments, and then they'll make a final decision. When they make that final decision, if you change their minds, then yeah, they'll give you asylum. If you don't, and they say, nope, we're not convinced, we still think you're not eligible for asylum, then they look again at your legal status. What is it at that moment? Because it could have changed. You might have previously had student status or tourist status or something, but then by the time they are ready to make a decision after your NOID rebuttal, you might have lost status. So if you don't have status when they're ready to make that final decision and it's a negative decision, you get sent to immigration court. But if you do still have status, whether it's TPS, tourist status, student status, H-1B, whatever, if you do still have that status, then they just send you what is called a denial. At the asylum office, they call it a final denial, but it's just a denial. It's a letter that says, nope, you don't get asylum. We considered your claim and we decided you're not eligible. But they don't put you in immigration court proceedings. You don't get deported. You just continue with whatever that other status is that you had until that expires. Okay? So that's that. Now, what I want to do is first of all, say hello. What's going on? We got Kim from, on YouTube, we got Kim in Colorado who says hello. Good to see you, Kim. Thanks for being with us. We got Darian Green watching from Portland, Oregon. Very nice. Portland's cool. I like Portland. We got Starts Like This. Darian says, I have my final hearing on February 25th. I have my affidavit all put together, and I think I need a lawyer. Let me address it in the form of a question, Darian, okay? So the question is this. Let's say you've got your final asylum hearing coming up, your individual hearing, it's called. Your principal hearing, your merits hearing, all these names mean the same thing. It's the one where you have to actually fight and explain your case, and the judge usually makes the decision right then and there that day. Let's say you've got that hearing coming up, right? And you might be thinking, I've done everything on my own so far. I've, gotten evidence. I've written a declaration, maybe even. You might be thinking, maybe I should get a lawyer. Well, yeah, you should. The approval rates are much, much, much higher for someone with a lawyer in immigration court than for someone without a lawyer. And it's not too late. Even if, you need to hire the lawyer, I would say at least 2 months before that hearing, before your individual hearing. So do not delay, okay? Do not delay. If you try to hire a lawyer 3 weeks before your individual hearing, you're going to have a really hard time finding one who will even take your case. Probably not a good lawyer, and they're not going to be able to do a great job. So get started early. Okay? All right. Let us go to the questions. What else do we got? SF, Sacramento, North Carolina, North California, best approval rate for asylum, sir, says Trong. Good question. So the question is this. Which state or city has the highest asylum approval rates? So listen, if you're looking at the state, California is easily the best state, okay? Because both of the asylum offices, there's two of them, Los Angeles and San Francisco, both the asylum offices and the various immigration courts there tend to have high approval rates for asylum, okay? San Francisco in general is the best city. It has usually both the immigration court there and the asylum office there tend to have in the top usually 2 or 3 of the highest approval rates every year. So San Francisco is great. New York is tricky. Very high approval rates in the immigration court in New York, but strangely, very low approval rates at the asylum office, at the USCIS asylum office in New York. So in New York, it's tough to be an affirmative asylum seeker, but if you get sent to immigration court there, it's good. They have high approval rates there. So overall, though, California, yeah, that's the best. Thanks for asking. Yep. Velvet Versa says hello from Texas. Leo says, Brian, what are the next steps after you get NOID? So yeah, I talked about it in some detail earlier, but let me just address it more succinctly here. The question is this. What are the steps after you get a notice of intent to deny from USCIS in your affirmative asylum case? We're talking about the notice of intent to deny, sometimes called a NOID for its initials. You have 16 days to respond and try to change the asylum officer's mind. Remember, in the notice of intent to deny, they set forth their reasoning. Like, we think you're not eligible for asylum for the following reasons. They kind of explain their justification, their reasoning. Well, you have to respond in writing in those 16 days and change their minds. It's basically like an appeal. You look at their reasoning and you try to pick it apart line by line. You try to show them where they messed up and why you really are eligible for asylum. So you have 16 days, you reply, and then they make a decision. They'll consider your arguments. It's very hard to change their minds, but it's not impossible. We've done it. We've changed their minds with a NOID rebuttal. The key thing is talk to a lawyer immediately. Time is short and there's a lot of work to do this. So talk to a lawyer immediately if you get this. Okay? That is important. Very important. I'm very anxious about the interview results. Why does it take so long for them to give a decision? Security, background checks, what's going on? Good question. So the question is this. Why does it sometimes take USCIS a long time to make a decision after the asylum interview? Well, listen, usually it's just the officer is overwhelmed with work and they haven't had time to process your case, to do all the things they have to do, because it takes a lot of work for the officer afterwards. I know this as a former asylum officer. It's a lot of work. You have to write out what's called an assessment where you're explaining, here's the facts of the case, here's my decision, here's my justification, my reasoning. Applying the facts to the law, it's a lot of work, and they're just overwhelmed. They have a lot of work. They have ridiculous workloads. So cases just get sort of in a backlog, and sometimes they get put on the desk and the shelf back there, and they get sort of forgotten about. Sometimes, yeah, it is like background checks, security checks that can take a long time to get through. But listen, the fact that it's taking a long time doesn't necessarily mean anything bad. It doesn't mean you're going to lose. But if you've been waiting over 3 years since you applied, since you applied, you may be able to sue to force your interview. Okay. Remember, you can use the mandamus lawsuit that I talk about so much. And by the way, we're offering a discount on mandamus lawsuits. It's a year-end discount, just November and December. If you hire us in November or December for a asylum delay lawsuit, we're offering a $500 discount, but it has to be November or December. It goes away on January 1st. Remember, the mandamus lawsuit can be used both to force the asylum interview. If you've been waiting for your interview for multiple years, that's the most common context, but you can also use it to force a decision because, yeah, sometimes people wait months or even years after their interview and they still haven't gotten their decision. So you can sue to force the decision, and we've done that successfully. Okay. All right. What else do we have? Mahdi says, could Trump revoke asylum-based EAD cards for those who entered the U.S. legally? Good question. The question is this. Is Donald Trump going to take away work permits from asylum seekers? I don't think so. But with this guy, look, you never know. Trump wants to make life as hard as possible for immigrants in general, and they especially dislike asylum seekers, and they want to discourage people from coming here to seek asylum. I don't think they're going to, because of practical concerns, really be able to take away work permits from people that have them based on their pending asylum case, whether you came to the border without a visa or whether you came here on a visa. I don't think that's going to happen. I could be wrong about that, but I sure hope not. It would be very hard for so many people who count on that to get by and to feed their families and whatnot. So I'm pretty hopeful that that's not going to happen, but I can't guarantee that. All right. What else? Thanks for asking the question, Mahdi. By the way, if you want to talk with one of our asylum professionals about your case so that we can sort of see what's going on and tell you whether we think that we might be able to help you, do this. Go to the website, the web page, winasylum.com. It's WINASYLUM.com. At winasylum.com, that's where you can schedule a free consultation. We're offering free consultations right now, okay? But we're getting booked up quickly. as you can probably understand, there's a lot of concern in the immigrant community about what's going to happen under Donald Trump, right? So a lot of people want to talk with us. Those interview slots, or excuse me, those consultation slots are filling up very quickly on our calendar. So if you want to grab one, go right now, like literally right now, to do that. Okay. You can do that at winasylum.com. It's WINASYLUM.com, winasylum.com. Ahmed Malik says from LinkedIn, he is the best lawyer. Helped me fix my entire case. Strongly recommend it. Thank you, Ahmed, for the vote of confidence. I appreciate it. Truly an honor serving you, supporting you. So thank you. Thank you for the kind words. Appreciate it. Darian says, okay, thank you so much for this awesome video. You're welcome, Darian. My pleasure. My pleasure. We've got Lavali Ibrahim watching from Des Plaines. Des Plaines. I almost said Des Moines, but it's Des Plaines. Anne-Marie says, Fola says, how long does it take to get a response from the asylum office when you send in a rebuttal? Good question. The question is this. How long is it going to take to get a final answer in your affirmative asylum case with USCIS after you send in a NOID rebuttal? We're talking here about a case where USCIS makes it plans to make a negative decision, but you have legal immigration status. And so they don't refer your case to immigration court. They send you a notice of intent to deny, called a NOID. And you get 16 days to respond in writing and like give your arguments and try to change their minds, try to show them why their reasoning for wanting to deny you is wrong and why you should get asylum. How long is it going to take them to make a final decision once you've sent in that rebuttal, that argument? There's no way to tell. In my experience, honestly, usually it is pretty quick. Usually it's a matter of 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, but not always. It could be a long time. If you applied for asylum at least 3 years ago and you're waiting for a final decision after you send in your NOID rebuttal and you're sick of waiting, you can consider suing to force that decision. Okay. But keep in mind, like, look, you're probably going to lose. It's hard to change their mind on a NOID, on a notice of intent to deny. The success rate in making them go back and say, you know what, we were wrong, we'll give you asylum. The success rate is low. It's hard to do that. We've had success with it for sure. But it's hard. Okay. So keep that in mind before you like say, oh, I'm going to go sue, because you may be hastening your final denial. And you may be out of status by the time you finally get that, in which case if you're out of status, once you get that final negative decision, you will be placed in immigration court proceedings and deportation proceedings. All right. Okay. Nikki Farouk says, hello, Brian. How long does it usually take for them to do a background check? I followed up after an interview and they just replied that they're doing a thorough background check. Good question. So let's do it like this. The question is this. How long does it take to get those background checks done in your asylum case? So listen, often after an interview, it takes a long time to get your decision. And if you ask USCIS, if you send them like an email or you call, they'll be like, oh, there's background checks pending. We'll get the decision eventually. It's true that sometimes those background checks, the process can actually take a while. It can take weeks or even months, but you should not just accept this as an excuse forever. If you applied for asylum at least 3 years ago, not talking about when you had your interview, I'm talking about when you applied. If you applied at least 3 years ago and you're still waiting for that decision, you should consider suing. A mandamus lawsuit will probably get your case unstuck, get you your decision. Even though they're like, oh, it's security checks. Well, if you sue them, they're going to do the security checks. They're going to actually push those through and get them done. All right. Let me know if you want to discuss that. So listen, if you want to discuss this mandamus lawsuit, this asylum delay lawsuit that we've had a ton of success with and we love doing, our clients love it because it works, then go to winasylum.com, WINASYLUM.com. That's winasylum.com. You can schedule a free consultation with one of our asylum professionals. All right. Listen, we've filed over 100 of these asylum delay lawsuits in the last, I don't know, maybe year and a half or so. And to date, we haven't lost a single one. Listen, past results don't guarantee future results. All right. They don't guarantee future success, but I think it does show you that this can be a very, very effective tool. It's a powerful tool to get your stalled asylum case unstuck. Listen, most immigration lawyers, they don't do this. They don't offer this as a service, this mandamus lawsuit. Why? It's complicated. It's not dealing with the normal immigration authorities. It's a lawsuit in a federal court, and federal court is tricky. There's very, very strict rules. It's a very different ball game than the immigration stuff with the immigration court or with USCIS. It's a different world. And it's daunting and intimidating to most lawyers. They don't want to take the time to learn it and get good at it. So most immigration lawyers don't offer this service. We offer it and we love it. I love suing the government. I love it. Getting our clients' case moved forward. All right. If you're sick of waiting, if you're waiting for your interview or you're waiting for your decision and you applied for asylum at least 3 years ago, we should talk. Now, listen, actually, for the Los Angeles Asylum Office, we're saying 5 years of waiting, 5 years. Okay. Everywhere else, every other asylum office, 3 years. We should talk about this. All right. If you want to hear all about it, go to winasylum.com, WINASYLUM.com. All right. And that's where you can schedule a consultation with one of our asylum professionals. Okay. Kim says, when someone files for affirmative asylum through a nonprofit, how soon should they expect to receive a notification from USCIS? The asylum clock isn't ticking either. What can they do? Good question. So the question is this. If you file for asylum with USCIS with the help of a nonprofit organization, when should you hear back from USCIS? Like, when should you get that receipt notice that says, hey, your case is pending, it's in the queue, and you know we've accepted it and it's pending as of X date, and from that date that it's received on, then your EAD, your work permit clock, should start counting from that day. Well, listen, it doesn't matter whether you apply with the help of a nonprofit, whether you apply with the help of a private attorney, whether you apply on your own. None of that matters to how long it should take USCIS to receive and put the case in the system and therefore start the clock, the EAD clock. It doesn't matter how you apply. If you applied a while ago and you haven't gotten that receipt notice, it may be because you applied on paper with like through mail. That can take many months. You should apply online. But if you already submitted it by paper, then it probably doesn't make sense to apply online, since you already sent in your application once. You just gotta wait. You'll eventually you'll get the receipt notice and eventually when they actually put the case into the system. The good news though is your asylum your work permit EAD clock, it doesn't start from the date that you get the receipt notice several months after applying. The good news is that they use the date that they stamp on the outside of the envelope once it's received in their mailroom. So if you applied for asylum 6 months ago, or let me rephrase it, you sent your application in 6 months ago, and then finally at the 6 month mark, you get the receipt notice that says received, it's pending. It'll say, we received your application and it's pending as of X date. And that X date is going to be 6 months ago when they received it in the mailroom, not today when they're sending you the receipt notice. And the EAD clock will be counting from that date 6 months ago. So you don't have to wait another 150 days from now to apply for your work permit. Rather, you can go ahead and apply right away because you've already waited long enough from the date, but you just don't see it counting up along the way because the case hasn't been entered in the system until just now, so it can't be counting up. But when you see it, it's going to say, oh, you're already at 185 days as soon as it's put into the system, because it's going to be using as the start date that date from when it was received in the mailroom 6 months ago. All right. Shani 1619 says, can you talk about the details of the affidavits that we need to submit as evidence? Do you mean affidavit? You mean like your personal declaration, or do you mean affidavits from like witnesses? Let me know which one you're more interested in, and I'll try to address that specifically, Shani. But I'll start with this, okay? The question is this. What kind of information should go in the declaration or the personal statement that you submit with your asylum case? Listen, This is your opportunity to tell your story in your own words without being interrupted and redirected by the asylum officer, which is what's going to happen at your interview. Okay. You can't count on being able to really tell your story in the way that you want to tell it at your interview, because the officer just takes control and they don't let you just sort of talk and tell your story. So the declaration is where you do this. You want to talk, you got to show the officer everything they need to see that you meet all the asylum requirements, right? The main 3 requirements of asylum are were you persecuted in the past? Were you harmed in the past? And if so, was it sufficiently severe to rise to the level of persecution? Looking forward, are you likely to be persecuted in the future in a sufficiently severe way to count as persecution? And then third, what is the motivation or nexus? Are the persecutors motivated to harm you because of your race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group? You got to show all that in your declaration. Okay? Listen, I've got a long training on YouTube about this. I think it's called The Perfect Personal Statement. Go to YouTube. First of all, for those of you on TikTok and LinkedIn and Facebook, YouTube is where I've got my best stuff. I've got lots of detailed trainings, tutorials on YouTube that I think can help you win your case. All right. So go to YouTube and search for Political Asylum Lawyers. That's the name of my law firm, and it's the name of our YouTube channel, Political Asylum Lawyers. Search for that on YouTube and subscribe. And there I've got if you search on YouTube for The Perfect Personal Statement, Asylum, I've got a pretty detailed training tutorial where I talk about this in detail, about exactly how to do the declaration, okay? What kind of things the officer wants to see, how to frame it, how to discuss, incidents of past harm or threats. It's really detailed. So go to YouTube and search for Political Asylum Lawyers, or search for The Perfect Personal Statement for Asylum. Okay. Alrighty. All right. All right. Starts like this: says, can you give us some examples of some questions that would be asked in a hearing or interview? And is there only one hearing once the interview's been? Well, I'll do the first thing. So the question is this: what kind of questions are you going to be asked at your asylum interview? Well, the asylum officer needs to know whether you've suffered past persecution, whether you've been harmed in the past in a way that's sufficiently severe to rise to the level of persecution. Second, they want to know about the future. What is there that indicates that you might be at risk in the future, a risk of being harmed? And if you're going to be harmed, how bad would it be? How severe would the harm be? And third is the question of nexus. They want to know what's motivating the persecutors. Not enough to show that you're at risk of being persecuted. You also have to show the persecutors are motivated by the fact that you possess one of the 5 protected characteristics under U.S. asylum law: race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or something called membership in a particular social group. Those are the main things you're going to be asked about. But listen, I've got a super detailed training about this, very detailed. Go to YouTube, search Political Asylum Lawyers, look at my full-length training videos playlist, and you're going to find it's called 133 questions that you'll be asked in your asylum interview, something like that. Find that. Okay? It's like a 3-hour long training, honestly. It's incredibly detailed with tons of sample questions that I asked when I was an asylum officer, and now that I'm seeing our clients being asked now that I am an asylum lawyer. Okay. Maria says, Guardado says, with the Texas hospital new law, can I get deported if I say I'm a non-citizen? Good question. What's the deal with this Texas law that is saying that, at hospitals, they're going to ask people about their immigration status? Are you at risk of getting deported if you say that, you're not a citizen, or that you say that you don't have legal status? Well, listen, first of all, you don't have to answer. They have to ask, but you don't have to answer. You cannot get punished. You can't get fined. You can't get arrested. They can't deny you medical services. Nothing bad could happen to you if you just say, I'd prefer not to talk about that. Thanks, but I prefer not to answer questions like that. You can say that. That's what I recommend, okay? But listen, if you do say, oh, I don't have legal status, are you going to get deported over it? I really don't think so. I think it's extremely unlikely that the hospital is going to go tell ICE and the ICE is going to come for you. But yeah, the safest thing to play it safe is just to be like, I'm sorry, I'd prefer not to talk about that. Okay? And that should be fine. All right. Um, Good question. Do we have to take our children or dependents to our interview or hearing, or is this only for the main applicant? Does USCIS have to speak to the rest of the family as well? I'm going to answer this in the context of USCIS. The question is this. Do your family members have to go with you to your asylum interview with USCIS? The answer is, if they're a dependent in your claim, then yeah, they do have to go. And they have to answer a few questions. They won't have to answer like substantive questions, almost certainly, about your claim. Just what are called security questions or bar questions. It's basically like, are you a terrorist? Are you a criminal? Asked like 15 different ways. That's only for dependents. That is to say, if you have a spouse or children who are under 21 and who are unmarried, at least at the time that you applied, they were under 21. They have to remain unmarried through the case. And you check the box on your application to say, yes, I want to include them in my case, then they have to show up for the interview. Yeah. But if you have family members, but they're not included in your case because they're not in the country, or you just chose not to include them as dependents, then they don't have to come. U.S. citizen children do not have to go. Okay. Hope that helps. Can you call or email the office to check your progress status after the asylum interview? Good question. The question is this. If you're waiting for a decision after your asylum interview with USCIS, will it help to like call or email the asylum office and, hey, check in on your status? Will that help sort of maybe move your case forward? Listen, there's a very, 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 very slight chance that it might help, that it might remind the officer that, oh yeah, that case file that's over there on the shelf that I keep putting off doing the finishing touches for, the person's calling and asking about it or emailing and asking about it. I guess I'll go ahead. Yeah, I guess I'll get it off my plate. I guess I'll get it done. Every once in a while, just inquiring with the asylum office about the status of a pending case can get it moving for that through that process. Usually it doesn't help. If you applied for asylum more than 3 years ago, I'm not talking about the time between your interview and today. I'm talking about the time between you applied from asylum and today. If it's been at least 3 years and you're waiting on your decision, you should consider suing through a mandamus lawsuit to force them to give you your decision. Okay? What are the chances of filing a mandamus lawsuit and then getting denied? Good question. The question is this. What are the chances of having your asylum case denied after you filed a mandamus lawsuit, an asylum delay lawsuit, to force your interview? Well, the asylum delay lawsuit, the mandamus lawsuit, I firmly believe will have no effect on your asylum decision. It will not make it more likely that you will win. It will not make it more likely that you will lose. It will just have no impact. Listen, I understand it's completely reasonable to think like, oh, it might hurt my case. It might make me look bad or make them mad at me, that I dared to sue the mighty U.S. government. But no, I don't think it will. The officer who does your interview and decision might not even know that you've sued. When I was an asylum officer, we didn't even know that someone had sued to get the interview. Second, even if they do know, I don't think they're going to care. It's understandable. It's normal. In the United States, we sue all the time. It's no big deal. Third, they can't use that, at least not formally, against you. The fact that you sued cannot be a negative factor to justify a denial. So don't worry about it. Okay? Honestly, I do not worry at all about potential negative consequences for my clients because of the fact that we sued to get the interview. I don't worry about it at all. I don't think it's an issue. Okay? Speaking of this mandamus lawsuit, we're offering a $500 discount only through the end of 2024, only through the end of the year for these cases. If you've been waiting for multiple years for your interview and you're sick of waiting and you want to get your interview so you can win your case and move on with confidence about your future, with certainty about your ability to stay safe, stay here, and build the life here that you want to build, you should schedule a consultation now. Go to winasylum.com, WINASYLUM.com. This $500 discount is only through the end of the year, okay? But, more importantly than saving $500 is the Trump effect, okay? Listen, the question is this. Is it going to get harder to win asylum under Donald Trump? Yeah, it is. I'm very confident that it is. Listen, he's going to put in place formal policies that will make entire sort of categories or classes of asylum seekers unable to win their case. Okay, so there's going to be formal policies, but there's also just going to be this anti-immigrant sentiment that is going to continue to grow. With every passing month that Trump is in power, I think it's going to be harder to win, both because, it takes some time to sort of put these new policies and rules in place and implement them fully. And I think this anti-immigrant sentiment that's going to be bad for asylum seekers, it will take a little bit of time for that to sort of ramp all the way up as well. So what I'm saying is, the sooner that you get your case decided, the better, okay? If you've been waiting for years for an asylum interview with USCIS, you should sue. You should sue in a mandamus lawsuit, an asylum delay lawsuit right now. I want to talk about this. Go to winasylum.com, WINASYLUM.com, okay? As I said, we're offering a $500 discount through the end of the year on this service. But the bigger reason, more important than saving $500, is that it's going to be harder to win asylum. With every month that Trump is in office, I think it's going to be increasingly hard. I think your chances for success are going to go down, honestly. So you should try to get your interview and your decision as quickly as possible, okay? That is what I think. How strong is a psych evaluation in your case? Good question. Can a psychological evaluation help you to win your asylum case? Yeah, it can make a difference. Listen, one of the, actually a crucial part of any asylum case is this question of how severe the harm that you've endured is, okay? Whether the harm that you've suffered rises to the level of persecution, and the way that word is used under U.S. asylum law is a key part of an asylum case. And psychological harm counts as harm. It's not just physical, what did they do to my body harm. Things that they did to you, whether it's physical harm or threats or other harassment, if it causes psychological harm, that psychological harm counts for this question of, were you persecuted? Was the harm severe enough to count as persecution? So yeah, a psychological evaluation or a letter from a mental health provider about these effects on you, yes, it can help you win your case, and I do recommend it. Okay. Anne-Marie, are you saying that you waited 8 years, you got your interview after 8 years, and then you got a NOID after 18 months after the interview you got a NOID? So you've been waiting 9 years and 6 months? Yeah. Does USCIS consider all this wait time? Yeah. If you're waiting for the final decision after the NOID, after you did a NOID rebuttal, yeah, you could sue. You could sue a mandamus lawsuit, and definitely you would almost certainly have success with this case of forcing them to make that decision, the final decision. Because yes, they will say, I will argue as your lawyer, it's been 9.5 years and this person hasn't gotten a decision yet. Yeah, there's a very high chance for success with getting your decision forced through this mandamus process. So listen, Anne-Marie, I want to talk. Go to winasylum.com, WINASYLUM.com. Schedule a free consultation with one of our asylum professionals. I say free. We're about to start opening up more slots on the weekends, and the weekend slots are going to be paid, okay? Like weekend and holidays, those are going to cost. They're going to cost probably $200. But weekdays during normal business hours are free, okay? Go to winasylum.com, Anne-Marie, and please schedule a consultation with one of our asylum professionals. That is it for today. I'm Brian Manning. It's a pleasure to support you, as always. It's really a pleasure to support you in your asylum journey. If you want to talk with us, winasylum.com, WINASYLUM.com is the webpage where you can schedule an asylum strategy session with us. Do that now. Go right now, all right? All right. Until the next time, thanks for being with us. It's a pleasure, and take care.